Thanks for pressing play. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Oracle NetSuite. If you're ready to turbocharge your growth, they're ready for you. Check out netsuite.com/legends. All right, on this episode, today we hang out with my good friend, Silicon Valley CEO, Jay Larson. We talk about how he went from sales rep to CEO and frankly is having one of the great careers in Silicon Valley. We also talk about why waiting to be a CEO can be a very smart thing, the power of hard work, the importance of being in the field. Jay's always been a leader who leads from the front, and why Jay Larson, at the end of the day, is all about the goodness. All right. Hey ho, let's go. Hello, my legendary friends. Thank you so much for joining me for this fantastic episode of Legends and Losers, where we try to have conversations worth sharing. Now, before we get to my buddy Jay, the good people at NetSuite have built a system for you to manage your business challenges like productivity, scalability, getting control of your costs, and most importantly, empowering your business growth. NetSuite is from Oracle, one of the largest technology companies in the world. So when you deploy NetSuite, you're deploying the infrastructure that is deployed by tens of thousands of companies around the globe. NetSuite empowers CEOs and business owners to develop a truly collaborative work environment, enabling employees across all departments and functions to share information, leverage each other's strengths. Don't you want to do that? Don't you want to leverage strengths? And tap into all of the resources inside your company. NetSuite is a complete business management software that handles every aspect of what you do. And it's an easy-to-use cloud platform and surprisingly cost-effective. So the good folks at NetSuite are offering a free 1-hour growth review to Legends and Losers listeners. Check out netsuite.com/legends, and when you go there, you'll be able to set up a growth review with an expert in your industry. So get your grow on. Check out netsuite.com/legends. Now, my buddy Jay Larson, he and I have worked closely together for many years. We worked at Mercury Interactive, which ultimately got acquired by Hewlett-Packard for $4.5 billion, making HP my favorite company of all time. And then we worked together again at a fun adventure called Success Factors that also had an incredible outcome. Success Factors was acquired by SAP after going public. To get more on Jay's amazing background and how he went from sales rep to CEO, check out legendsandlosers.com and look at the show notes for this episode. Here he is, my dear friend, in a conversation worth sharing, Jay Larson. So, Jay Boss, how do you like being a CEO?
I love it. It's fantastic, and it's harder than I thought it would be, but it's been incredibly gratifying, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity that I have here at Optimizely.
Well, I'm stoked that you're a CEO, and obviously you're a second time now, right?
That's right.
And I don't know if you remember, this was a long time ago, and frankly, it's been a lot of scotches ago, so I'm surprised I remember. But I remember sitting in your office at Mercury, and we were just sort of, dreaming and scheming and talking about life a little bit. And I remember asking you if you thought one day you might be a CEO. And do you remember what you said?
I don't.
Yeah, you said probably not, that you at the time felt like, you had achieved great things in your career, and obviously you were the head of all of worldwide field ops at the time, and, Mercury was an important company, and you were obviously a very big ding-dong executive, and that, I can't remember your exact words, but it was something along the lines of, if you weren't a CEO, that would be just fine, that you've had a great career. And I remember this. I remember looking at you in the eye and saying, well, if it ends that way, that's great. But I really think you should be a CEO. So I just want you to know I'm stoked you're a CEO.
Yeah, well, it went as you had predicted, and now that I've had a couple of shots at being one instead of two, I feel very fortunate, and I'm glad that things worked out this way. I felt like I had a great run in sales, and I was not a guy that felt like, hey, you know what, I got to be I got to be the CEO of a company, or my career is going to somehow be blemished, or I'm going to be unfulfilled. No, I never really felt that way. But I think that the way that things have worked out, it was the right move for me at the right time. I waited quite a long while to be the CEO of a company. I mean, by the time I got my first gig, I was well into my 50s, which I think is old for somebody who is going to run a private company. But no, I think that circumstances have come together in a wonderful way for me, and I'm thankful for the opportunity that I've got here.
Well, and I was curious to ask you about that. It's been a while since we talked, and you did wait a long time. I think you could have been a CEO clearly much earlier in your career, given the amazing guy you are and this track record of success you've had. And so, how do you think about it now that you sort of took your time, particularly in the tech world, to become a CEO?
As I think about that decision, it was made consciously. I always felt like it was better to be the number two guy at an A opportunity than the number one guy at a C opportunity. And I think that the way that the software business works, the first trip to the plate that you get, is generally not a wonderful deal. And I was always confronted with a choice between doing a deal that, didn't strike me as being terrific as a CEO, or, running sales or field operations or some portion of the business, for a terrific company. And I had the very good fortune to work for some really good businesses and to work for some very good CEOs. And it was a good fit for me. It was a good fit for my skills. But it got to the point where, I felt like I was ready. I felt like I was ready to take the next step, and I wanted to do more, and I felt like I could contribute in a bigger way. And, frankly, I wanted to get a shot to test my mettle and see what I could do running a business, which I felt like I had been very well prepared for, given previous experience that I'd had and some of the great people like you that I'd had a chance to work with and learn from.
And I think of how wise that is. Of course, we live in an industry, you and I, where there's a lot of 22-year-old whiz kids and folks getting out of big ding dong schools and starting companies at incredibly young ages and becoming the CEO of that company and so forth and so on. And so you sort of it's easy in the tech industry maybe to get an impression that if you're not a CEO by the time you're 18, you're a failure. And so. How do you think about the trajectory of your career path now with a little bit of hindsight?
Well, I think that if you want to be the CEO of a company, you have to go high before you can go wide. And I was very fortunate. I landed in a part of the business that was a really good fit for my skills, and it was something that I enjoyed and something that I was very successful at, which was the sales function. And I think that you've got to be great at something before you get a chance to manage a larger part of the business. And, frankly, it took me a while to get to the point where I was running a big sales organization. And I had to do that. And I had to do it a couple of times. And I had to do it well before I was a candidate to run a business and take on the other functions as well. And I think that that's actually a good piece of advice that, I've shared with many of my folks. It's like, hey, you know what? I want to be a CEO. I want to be a general manager. How do I do that? Well, you got to go high. You got to be great at something before you deserve a shot to be great at other things. And, that's very much the way that my career worked out. And I had a good run in sales. I was very, very, very fortunate. I kind of landed in sales by accident and not by design. And I landed in the tech business by accident and not by design. And both of those things turned out to be a perfect fit. I ran that route, and I think I ran it, modesty aside, pretty well. And based on that success, I got a chance to do some interesting things as a CEO and not get started by, basically running a 10-person company and doing something close to nothing in terms of a business.
And one of the many things I love about you is, I got to see at least the back end of that upward progression for you, right? If I'm not mistaken, when I joined Mercury, were you running America's sales at the time? Was that right?
I was. That's where I got started working for Ken.
Yeah. And then, ultimately, of course, not only did you end up running worldwide sales, but you worldwide field ops and, what a lot of people today maybe call the chief revenue officer or some companies call the COO, but you ended up having a very giant job. And I saw you step up each one of those ways. And so I guess, or each one of those times. So I guess my question to you would be, if I was a younger person, maybe in my career, maybe I was a bag carrying sales rep like you once were, and I had big ambitions to do the kinds of things Jay Larson's done. What advice would you give a younger person or the younger Jay Larson?
So I think that no matter what job you've got to be great at the job you've got. And I think that there's this notion that you earn the right to do more. And that's something that I always took very seriously. Kind of the dirty little secret in not just the tech business, but every industry is you got to be great at the current job before you can get a bigger job. And so, I was fortunate. I landed in some great companies, and I had, not only great companies, but I worked with some fantastic people who took an interest in me and who were motivated to help me move my career along. And, I went from being a sales guy to being a sales manager, and that transition was probably more difficult than I anticipated. But, it turned out that it was something that I was pretty good at, and my responsibility continued to grow. And I think the common theme for me, though, Christopher, was I landed in really good companies, and I was surrounded by really, really good people, both the people I was working for and the people that I had been fortunate enough to attract to be a part of my team. And, I think that's half the battle. Great company, great people. I think those are the things that you should be looking for as you look to advance your career, which is, I think, the reverse of what many people do. I get a lot of calls for advice about careers and, should I do this or that or the other thing? And most everybody wants to talk about the job and the comp plan and, isn't this a wonderful level of responsibility? I think that's kind of backwards. My advice to folks is, hey, look at the company, look at the people. That's really what you should be trying to optimize for, especially early in your career where you are looking to learn and grow and get attached to a team of people that will tow you along with them as they do great things in the business.
And I think that's great advice. And by the way, I find the same thing. People pick those things, they pick the title, and they don't pick the opportunity. They don't pick the category. They don't pick, obviously, the caliber of the team. And I've always sort of felt like you do, which is I'd rather be the bench warmer on the World Series champion than, the superstar on the worst team in the major leagues. And so you were really early on, you had almost an uncanny ability to pick companies. You were at Oracle very early, if I remember correct. Is that right?
That is true. Yep. I worked at Oracle for, it was 6 or 7 years, but it was a long time ago. When I joined Oracle, Oracle was about $600 million in sales. And I think that when I left 7 years later, it was, multi-billion-dollar software company. So there had been tremendous growth. And I was fortunate to be a part of that company at that time. And I learned a lot along the way.
And then you picked Siebel Systems after that, am I remembering right?
No, I actually I left Oracle and went to work for a startup company for a relatively short period of time. I was at Siebel and then another company called Network Associates, and then after that landed at Mercury, where I was with you and the rest of the crew for quite a long time, 6 years or so.
Now, if I were to look at your career on paper, it would be very easy to present it as sort of a very kind of up and to the right path. And you clearly have had a lot of success, but we know the truth. There's some, we like to call it around here, some losery along the way. And sort of, how do you think about the failures that you've had and how that's kind of contributed to you becoming a CEO today?
Well, nothing is straight up and to the right. And, whether it's your career, it's companies, it's anything there, even if the trajectory is up and to the right, there's some peaks and valleys along the way. And, I would say even within companies, there were peaks and valleys along the way. One of the things that I was fortunate to have a chance to do at Oracle was to watch a fellow named Ray Lane run the field operations part of the business at Oracle. And I ran into him. He ended up having it was basically a second family, another several children. A little bit later in his life, and so his kids turned out to be the same age or close to the same age as a couple of my kids, and they went to the same school. And so I saw Ray at a school function, and I walked up and I introduced myself or reintroduced myself, and he was very gracious. I'm sure he didn't remember who the hell I was, but he said, "Oh yeah, Jay, great to see you." And I said, "Hey Ray, I got to tell you, I don't know if this will be meaningful to you or not, but there's not a day that goes by where in my current job, I don't reflect back on something that I learned from watching you in action and doing your job so well at Oracle." And I said, I want you to know that, you really had a big impact on me and had a very important role in cultivating a next generation of leaders in the Silicon Valley. And I want to make sure that you're aware of that and aware of how much I appreciate that. And how
He is
much I
kind of
learned.
he is kind of one of the unsung heroes, don't you think?
I think he is a brilliant guy. He did an amazing job at Oracle. And, the thing that in retrospect, I didn't appreciate at the time, but I do now, is how much I learned from watching somebody else do a job and do a job really well. And I think that this is an undervalued asset today. One of the things I think that we bring to others that are around us, I hear a lot, geez, coach me, mentor me, train me, get me skilled up, get me coached up. Yeah, I want to do all of those things. But at the end of the day, the single best thing I can do to help somebody learn and grow and advance in their career is to do what? It's to be great at my job and let other people watch me in action, because everything else, I think pales by comparison. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, it's funny, these sort of do as I say, not as I do types, right? It's like, well, it kind of makes you an asshole if you're giving advice that you don't follow, or you're not somebody whose behavior and actions I actually want to emulate.
Well, I think that is true, and I think that we have, we've been surrounded by some really, really good people who, one of the expressions that I like a lot is, leading the charge from the front. People that are out there on the front lines, doing the heavy lifting. It's not just asking others to do things, but actually demonstrating that they will do what they're asking others to do and more. And I think that that's really, it's a key to being an effective leader no matter what you do. Whether you're on a team or whether you're in the software business or, in any line of work, it's, will you roll up your sleeves, do the heavy lifting, and, not only do what you're asking others to do, but do more. I think that is something that we've had a chance to watch, firsthand from a whole bunch of different people that we've worked with. And those are the kind of things that I think really make a difference in, what we can accomplish when, it's our turn leading companies, right now.
And I always marveled at your capacity for work, Jay. I mean, we have both known executives, and I don't want to pick on sales leaders, but sales is, in my mind, a job that is, the leader should be in the field, maybe more than certainly some other jobs. Let me say it that way. And you were in the field. I mean, when we worked together, you were gone a lot of the time. You were on sales calls, you were meeting customers, you were out in the world, you were with partners. I mean, you were traveling probably even more than I was, and it felt like I was, on the road a lot. How do you think about that sort of time in the field?
So I think it's crucial, and I think that one of the things that helped me be successful, not just as a sales leader, but as just a leader period, as an executive, was my willingness to spend time in the field. And I guess honestly, it's a double-edged sword. The fun part of selling for me was being out in front of customers and prospects and evangelizing and telling a story that I was passionate about. I love that. That was it was the fun part of the job. The less ideal part of being gone all the time is that if you have a family, you're gone a lot and you miss out on a lot of things. So it is both. On one hand, I think a blessing to go out and have a chance to spend time in the field and kind of lock arms with people that you're working with and go get stuff done in front of the customers and help people be successful in their jobs and help them learn, help them grow. That's incredibly gratifying. But on the other hand, I was gone literally 60% of the time for 10 years of my life. I was probably traveling between 100 and 200,000 air miles a year for 12 years or so. And that's a lot. That is a lot of travel. And there's a lot of sacrifice there. It wasn't easy, and especially not for my wife, who's wonderful and who's been remarkably patient.
Your wife, is she actually, has she
That's what it took to get the job done. And so that's what I was determined to go out and do.
has Gigi officially been anointed a saint yet?
Well, she certainly has by me. I don't know about anybody else.
And I, knowing you so well as I do, and having spent so much time on the road and over dinners and beers and scotches and so forth, and of course getting to know your kids, particularly when they were young, and your wife, I know what kind of a committed dad you are. And so the time when we were working together, I sort of viewed you somewhat of a Superman, because I knew how much you were working and how much you were traveling. But at the same time, it seemed like you were a deeply committed and engaged dad. How do you figure out how to make all that work, Jay?
Well, I wish I could tell you that I led the league in all categories. I think I probably did not. Um, you know, I Christopher, is like so many things in life. You go out and you do the best you can. And I was always very driven to be successful in work. I still am. I think I work harder now than ever before. I'm very passionate about the opportunity that we've got at Optimizely, and I'm fired up about the business. And I want to be the best leader that I can possibly be for the team here. That requires a lot of time and a lot of energy. I'm probably working, I don't know, 65, 70 hours a week still, which is what I did at Success Factors, and it's what I did at Mercury. That's just, to some extent, it's the way I'm wired. I'm just a grinder. I want to go out and I want to win. I want to be the best I can be. And, if push comes to shove, I'm just prepared to, outwork the next guy. And it would be nicer if you could always outsmart the next person. But in some cases, you just got to buck up and you got to grind. And that was just something that I was prepared to do. And
I got to tell you, in my whole career, I mean, you always said that. So I don't know if you realize, I remember you saying those kinds of things, as we say now, back in the day, that you were a grinder and you did grind. You just outworked pretty much everybody. And it's something that often doesn't get talked about. I think maybe even more so today, that if you want to have the kind of career Jay Larson has had, you're going to have to put in some serious hours and some serious miles.
I think that that's true in all walks of life. I was listening, there's now, I don't have a lot of time to follow sports. I still like college football, but I was listening. There's sports talk radio on FM now in the Bay Area, and there has been for, I don't know, a couple of years. And I was listening to an interview with the football coach at San Jose State. And he had a player at the time of this interview who was a superstar player and who was going to make it into the NFL. And the fellow asked him, "So what's it like coaching a player of this caliber? Do you have to treat him differently? Do you know any special handling? Is there a different standard for that player than everybody else?" And I remember what the coach said. He said, "No, I mean, you treat the person absolutely the same." And he said, "I've had the joy of being around 4 or 5 players that have ended up making it into the NFL. And what was the one thing that was consistent about these 4 or 5 players? They were all grinders. They would show up early. They worked harder in practice. They had greater attention to detail. They just flat tried harder. They were more passionate. It meant more to them." And I think that's just, this notion of, well, geez, you're going to go and you're going to grind it out. I think it's not glamorous. It's not sexy. It makes you kind of sound like, geez, you got to work hard because you're not that smart. I think that the people that play at the top of any profession are a combination of both. They're very bright and they're also super motivated and passionate, and they'll put in the time. I mean, you have to. I don't know any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you man, if anybody I've ever known in my career, you walk that talk. Now, I also wanted to ask you with some reflection, because of course I have my memories. Typically in any kind of company, but certainly in tech companies, it's not unusual for sales to hate marketing and vice versa. And my memory is that was not at all the case at Mercury. Certainly wasn't between you and I don't think it was between our teams. And so how do you think about whether it's your seat now as a CEO or your seat then as the leader of field ops or sales, getting out of that stupid interdepartmental BS between particularly marketing and sales?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and it's a big issue and a touch point that doesn't work very well in most companies. I think part of it when we were working together, I enjoyed the heck out of working with you, and I had enormous respect for you, and I thought that you were really freaking awesome at your job. And that was the going in point. But then it also became clear that the more closely we could collaborate, the better that touch point was between sales and marketing, the better results that we were going to be able to collectively produce for the company. And, for the salespeople to be biting the hand that feeds them in marketing, just it doesn't make any sense at all. I think that the closer that relationship is, the better the results are going to be, not only for the company but for the salespeople that are the beneficiaries for much of the good work that the marketing folks are doing. So I felt like that was an incredibly stupid approach. And occasionally you work with somebody in marketing that's a knucklehead that is not good at their job. But if somebody is good at their job and they're trying to help support the sales organization, for crying out loud, why would you not want to, embrace that person and work together as best you possibly could?
And more than any company I was ever associated with, maybe this is not a nice expression anymore. We used to say we're in each other's shorts. Across the executive team, you had deep relationships with the product folks and the engineering folks, and so did I. And, we were all in each other's business deeply. And I remember early on, you of course remember Carol Gum.
Uh-huh.
And when she first started in marketing, I remember her coming to me and, in the first few weeks she was on board, and she says to me, "Hey, Christopher, I got this meeting maker to go meet with Jay to review," I forget what it was, whatever it was. And she says, "And I notice you're not on the invite. What do you want me to do?" And I looked at her and I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Well, you're not on the invite. How does this work?" And I said, "Well, if Jay wants to meet with you, and you should go meet with Jay." And I realized, at first I didn't realize what she was asking, but then I realized, oh yes, there's this bullshit in a lot of companies where all that kind of stuff doesn't happen. And so I just have these fond memories of, I knew so many of the salespeople. I was in the field all the time as well. And so we were always in each other's quote unquote shorts. And so how do you think about that, sort of all this cross-functional stuff that we did then, and I know you've continued since then?
So I think that you know, I think that communication and collaboration, and I know that that sounds corny, but it feels to me like, especially in smaller companies, that's just, it's easier and it's better. And I think that that people have realized that kind of going to battle stations and trying to bang on somebody else who's one of your peers in a company, it's just not constructive. It's just not the right answer. It's not the way to go. We talk a lot about, not only at this company, but previous companies, about values, about culture, and about, being a single team. And it just, I think it's woefully out of date. There are some places in an organization where, I think that, are people always destined to, to have a tight relationship and a happy relationship? Not necessarily, but at the end of the day, I think that the good thing about Mercury specifically, what you're referring to, is we had a bunch of super talented, super motivated people. There was a good relationship. And at the end of the day, everybody was pulling the rope in the same direction. Everybody was all in on building a great company and going and beating the snot out of our competitors. And the way to do that was to work together as a single team. It was not to try and be divisive and, bang on one another and, do it for some kind of personal or political gain.
And the thing that I think was so cool, and of course it wasn't just you and I think it was broad across the executive team. I certainly felt it with, Boaz in engineering and Yuval and really everybody, the finance team, everybody. There was no feeling, like when I was in the field going on sales calls, I didn't think, I'm in Jay's sandbox now and I better conduct myself in some way because I'm dealing with Jay's folks or I'm dealing with Boaz's folks in engineering. To your point, I was working with our team whether it was trying to help the folks in the field close business or develop relationships or brainstorm with product folks or whatever it was, right? It felt like we were all, to use your expression, pulling the rope in the same direction.
And I think that that's fundamentally right. The other thing about me personally is not only that I had a lot of respect for the other members of the team, and I thought that they were really, really, really good at their jobs. But you probably remember about my background. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a product guy. And I am probably more dependent on people on the product side of the business and on the marketing side of the business than many people that are in my role. I didn't ever feel like I had all of the answers. I always felt like it was massively to the benefit of me and to the sales team to get you folks out into the field. And that's one of the things that we continue to work really, really hard on to this day. I think that the single biggest differentiator between a good salesperson and a great salesperson is the ability to get high in the organization that you're selling to. And the best way to do that is how? It's to leverage your executive team. And so I think that was something that I really believed in from early on. I thought that it was a big win for us if we could get you out into the field, or Boaz or Yuval or Amnon. When they were out in the field helping us sell, who won? The sales team won. Those folks were people that were game changers for us.
Yeah. Now, if I could just get you to see if you could turn off your email notifications, Jay. Now, I got to ask you about some Jay Larson isms. There's at least 3 and probably more, but 3 off the top of my head. You were famous in the company to the point where many of us did impressions of you saying certain phrases that I still say today. So a couple that I remember the most are the word goodness. There's a lot of goodness in this for us, or where's the goodness in this for us? The other one that I really loved is there's got to be a give to get here. You are a master of negotiation. Of course, you've negotiated many very giant, 10, 20 million plus deals. And so you're always looking for the good to get in these deals. And the other one I always love that you said is, this is a very good situation. And sometimes you would stitch them together because you'd say, this is a very good situation because we're working through the good to get, and I think we're going to get to the goodness. And so where do these Jay Larson isms come from?
I don't know. I just dreamed this stuff up, and I thought where you were going with this was the other one you used to torture me about. When are we going to get paid?
Yeah, well, actually, I should have mentioned that one. It was like, yeah, it was, it was a constant refrain, right?
Yeah, it was. It was. So if we go and we do this, yeah, is there goodness in the company? Are we going to get paid? Yeah, that was always that was part of the talk track as well. Look, I enjoyed the work that we did. I enjoyed the relationships. I think that people want to have some fun along the way, and I think that was one of the nice things about not only our relationship, but the experience that we had at Mercury, the work that I did at Success Factors. I think that we had some fun along the way, and that really matters. I mean, when you're done and you walk off the field for the last time, I mean, what do you got left? You got you've hopefully accomplished some things that you're proud of. You've built some good relationships. You've delivered value to customers, and the give to get has been good for the people who are on the buy side of the deal as well. And, hopefully you've coached up some other people and helped them move along in their careers as people have helped you. And, what else? Hopefully you've got some good memories and you've had some fun along the way. And I think that really does matter. And I think that we have, as I look back at the experiences that I've had that are the most fond recollections, there are places where, I really love the people that I worked with and we had some fun along the way. And, poking fun at one another was, part and parcel of that. And, my language, which has probably become much more sterile over time, look, we had some fun along the way.
And actually, at Mercury, as I remember it, we had a good time poking fun at each other, but never in sort of a nasty way, right? Like, I can remember several times you and I poking fun at, by way of example, not to throw him under the bus, but, Doug Smith, our CFO, right? We'd have some fun moments with him, and I was the butt of a lot of jokes on a fairly regular, but it was never nasty. There was that playful banter, almost like maybe a sports team might have.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, there was deep affection among the folks on the team, and there was trust. And so, and it was clear. I remember an early meeting that I was in at Mercury, and a couple of the Israeli guys were like, it was heated. They were really going after it. I said, I'm brand new, but I think I'm going to have to step in between these guys and keep one of these guys from taking a poke at another one. And it was very, very intense. And the surprising thing was, 10 minutes later, these same two guys were smoking a cigarette, very calmly, having a chat about the basketball team in Tel Aviv in the parking lot. And I said, geez, this is really different, because there was incredible intensity and passion about issues and about making the company better. And people were very, very heated, but it was never personal. It was all about, how do we make this company great? How do we go put a serious ass whipping on our competition? And everybody was very fired up with that goal in mind. It got intense, it got heated, but it never got personal. I don't recall there ever being a situation where somebody was either being mean-spirited or attacking somebody else in the organization. It was all about the issues and how do we make this company the very best company it can be.
Yeah, that was absolutely my memory as well. Now, I got to ask you, sales is obviously a super tough job because every quarter it's very clear, you either hit the number, beat the number, or you didn't. And you're somebody who not only was able to manage a very large at the time sales organization, across the world, with ultimately at Mercury, how many folks rolled up to you? It must have been.
At one point, I think it was 12 or 1,400. It was about half the company.
Yeah. And so how is it that, particularly at that scope, you were able to not only consistently deliver the numbers, but I remember, there's a lot of sales, or not a lot, there's sales leaders I have seen in the past who sort of bullshit about the numbers, bullshit about the forecast, or maybe they're not even bullshitting. Maybe they themselves have a little bit of happy ears. They're hearing what they want. And one of the two big characteristics I remember about you was you always were consistent about hitting the numbers, and you were always very transparent and sort of very grounded in, if you were forecasting a deal, what the reality of us getting the deal was, what we needed to do, that you didn't have those happy ears. So could you kind of unpack how you think about those things?
Yeah. So I've always felt like in the sales part of the business, what's the number one question you have to be able to answer and answer accurately is, where are you going to finish? That's really what the people above me in the organization needed to know. Amnon needed to know where we were going to finish. The CFO needed to know where we going to finish. And I just thought that it was being able to answer that question and answer it accurately was a condition of my employment. I had to be able to tell people what was the state of the business, where we were doing well, where we were not doing well. And if you've got bad news, you're way better off going ugly early. And I think that is one of the things that has served me very well in my career. The other that I've always felt, if something was screwed up, and this is a point I've tried to share with a number of people, during my career. Look, if you screw something up or something is wrong or it's a train wreck or whatever, you can't explain it away. The people that you're working with are smart. They know if you're like bullshitting them, they know, and you can either basically say, hey, you know what, let me explain to you for the next 20 minutes why this is not really a problem. And, then people end up being red in the face like, this guy doesn't get it. And, it is a problem. Why is he arguing that this is not a problem? This is just fundamentally wrong. It is so much easier and better just to say, hey, you know what? This is a total train wreck. It is not okay. We did the best we could, but the outcome sucks. And you know what? I own this. And I'm telling you, I get that this is not okay. And I'm committing to you right here, right now, that this is not going to happen again. I am all over this like a bad rash. Do not worry. I will get this fixed. And if you take that approach, people just, wow, I thought I was going to have an argument from this guy about how this was not okay, and he's going to argue that it is okay. I can't believe it. Somebody just took ownership of this thing. They said, this is a giant steamer, and they owned it, and they're going to fix it. And so I can, as a leader, what can I do? I can move on to the next thing. So instead of spending 20 minutes and being unsatisfied because I get an argument, what do? I spend 60 seconds and I emerge saying, wow, that was a stand-up approach. This person took ownership of something that was screwed up. They get it. It's not okay. They're going to go fix this. They're telling me it's never going to happen again. I got to check in all the right boxes. I did it quickly. I feel better about this person than when I started, and I'm on to the next thing. Because, as CEO's got a laundry list of problems to go fix. I've always aspired to just be brutally honest. And if there was bad news, to let people know what was up and that I was on it and that I was going to fix it. But this seems to be a hard lesson for many people to learn. What they want to do is they want to argue you down, or they want to finesse it, or, well, it's kind of not this thing over here. It's this thing over here. Bullshit. I've been doing this for a while. You can't finesse me on this. Are you kidding? This is as clear as day. This is not okay.
I have always loved this about you.
Is like, are you kidding me? This is, you're better than that. Just own it. And
I've always loved that about you, Jay. Always. And I think this is another reason why you've become such a great CEO. Like, this is exactly what a board wants from a CEO.
I think that is true. And part of my personal brand has always, I think, been transparency and being candid, whether the news is good or not good, owning the issues. And, I think I've always been willing to strike a fair balance between my people and also the company. And I think I've been balanced in making sure that we didn't engineer situations that were either one-sided in favor of the company or one-sided in favor of our people. That there was a degree of fairness and look, there's a whole bunch of cases, I think, where I've had to go to battle stations to do, the right thing for people. But periodically, you got to go to your folks and you got to say, hey, you know what, this is not going to go the way you like. But I need you to stick with me on this. And here's why we're going to do this, but we got to go do this. It's a bitter pill.
Yeah.
I need you to, I need you to get with this program, even though it's not pleasant. But I think that the willingness to not only own issues, be transparent, strike a fair balance between different stakeholders, is really essential. And the higher you go in an organization, the more important those things become, because when you're talking to people, like our board members, we've got an amazing board here at Optimizely. Are you kidding me? I mean, we got, Peter Fenton, and we got Lars Dalgaard, who and we got Mike Volpe. We've got an amazing board here.
You could argue those are three of the smartest guys in Silicon Valley.
Exactly. And you think I'm going to go to them and say, hey, you know what? We kind of, laid an egg over here, but it's really not that bad. And, let me try and tell you why, this situation, which, looks like a car accident, is good. People they don't have time. They don't have patience. They've seen it all. They've done it all. They just don't, you can't bullshit them. And if you're going to go and show up in front of a group like that, and you're going to try and bullshit people, you're not going to be in your job for very long. There's just, nobody has got the time or the tolerance for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of the things, that sort of extreme clarity and transparency is something that you taught me, and you've always been a great example of for me. Now, maybe let's talk a little bit about Optimizely. I got to tell you, I hear about the company a lot from entrepreneurs, and I was in a conversation with an entrepreneur very recently, just serendipitously, and we're talking about their business and how they were kind of figuring things out and this and that and the other, and they're trying to really find their way in their category. And they said, we're using this thing called Optimizely, and it's really helping us sort of navigate where we should go and what we should do and so forth and so on. And I'm just smiling because, of course, this individual had no idea about our relationship. And so maybe tell me a little bit from your perspective about the company, why you joined, and why you're so fired up about it.
So, Christopher, this is a fantastic company. It is a really cool business. And, I was thinking a little bit about what I was going to share with you and your audience about the company. There's a big idea here. This is not just the next generation of a product that has existed for a very long time. It's not, some, kind of new technology that is a rehash of something that has existed in the past. There's a big idea here, and our big idea is that we are bringing the goodness of the scientific method to business decision making. And you think about that for a second. I mean, there are a lot of companies out there that are very successful, and a lot of companies have gone public, and what they do is just not that interesting. No disrespect to the other guys that are in boring businesses that make a lot of money. Well, good for them. But what we're doing is really, really cool, because as you think about, what's happening in the marketplace today, there's a digital revolution going on. And what is one of the byproducts of this digital revolution? Suddenly, everybody is sitting on boatloads of data. What can you do now that you could not do in the past? Now that you've got boatloads of data, you can actually run rigorous experiments. Yeah, you can actually do experiments. And instead of guessing and making decisions based on intuition, making decisions based on, whatever the highest paid person in the room thinks is the right answer, you can make those decisions based on proof, on data, on facts. And so this is a really cool thing that we're doing. This whole notion of experimentation and the notion of a test and learn platform, this gives us a chance to really be a game changer for our customers, because anything that they do online, we can help them do in a fundamentally better and more profitable way. And this is a really, really cool business. It's a cool value proposition. And, the results that we can deliver for our customers are, if I told you some of the numbers, you'd fall out of your chair. The value proposition here is second to none in the software business.
Well, and I don't want to tickle your ivories too much, but I think in some ways what you're talking about, Optimizely, is somewhat of a holy grail, in that for years we thought everything you just said was true, and because we could micro target certain niches of people and see what they want and what they think or what they do, and then we could run experiments, we could A/B test in the beginning and go from there. We could try small things, learn, course correct, and then once we feel like we kind of identified exactly what we want to do in a data oriented way, then we could hit the charge button, so to speak. And so I think in a lot of ways, Optimizely is one of those breakaway kind of companies where you're delivering on a promise that has been there in the new digital world for a long time, but heretofore has been tough to actually get executed.
I think that's Christopher, exactly right. This is I think a new old space. Old because A/B testing has been around for quite a long while. It is new because of the realization that companies are having that, if I want to go big and I want to win in anything that I'm doing online, experimentation really needs to be at the core of how I run my business. We like to coach our salespeople up to say, hey, you know what? We're not just the next big thing in technology. We're not just the next big thing in software. We're the next big thing in business management. You think about how all of these dominant online players, how did Google get to be Google? How did Microsoft get to be Microsoft? How did Amazon get to be Amazon? Well, at the core of Amazon's success is what? It's experimentation. And Jeff Bezos was quoted in the New York Times, it was 6 or 8 months ago, saying, hey, why do we win? Because we do more experiments than anybody else. And not just per year, not just per month, not just per week. We do more experiments every day than anybody else. And this has been at the core of our success. And so now that these big, dominant online businesses have not only proven that experimentation is the key to success, doing anything online, but now that they're talking about it openly, it's like cha-ching. Wow, well, if you're one of those companies and you've invested a lot solving this problem on your own, but if you're not one of those companies, where do you go to get in the game? Where do you go to not only get experimentation, but to be able to run a program at scale? And the combination of technology and expertise that you need to go and compete with people that have deep roots in doing experimentation and personalization. That's what we're bringing to the marketplace in a way that nobody else can. And our business today is all about scale. It's about how do we help somebody go 10x the number of experiments that they're running. However many experiments that you're doing this year, we want you to do 10x next year and 10x the year after that. And that's what we're bringing to the market in a way where, frankly, nobody else can.
Well, and what I love about it is we live in a world that requires it, right? So if you think about this term omnichannel we hear by way of example, right? If let's say you feel like you've got it nailed with how you digitally market and acquire customers, and you feel like you've got that nailed. Well, you might have that nailed with email marketing. You might have that nailed with the experience on your website, or you might have that nailed with Facebook marketing or whatever it is, right? But new channels emerge all the time, and customer preferences change all the time, and all of a sudden, Snapchat shows up, and a huge percentage of your audience is there. And how do I interact with them there? Or there's a lot of innovation now on the customer service side, and so this omni-channel world that we live in requires, whether we like it or not, an understanding that what works today isn't necessarily going to work this afternoon. And therefore, I got to be experimenting in wherever I'm currently successful, as well as new channel opportunities open up. Am I thinking about this right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that what we are seeing and what we're bringing with our product line is a platform that gives people the broadest possible array of experimentation options. So, a lot of experimentation got started on the web, but what about mobile? Well, cha-ching, we can help with that. What about if you want to do server-side experimentation? Well, we can do that as well. What if you want to do, OTT experimentation? Well, we've got that covered also. So the breadth of the offering, we can address the entire product life cycle in a way where nobody else can. And again, we've got competitors in the space. Our biggest competitor has got a product that is about 10 years old, that is woefully out of date. And, we basically can run circles around them. What we're bringing is not only the breadth of experimentation capability, but the ability to scale up and the ability to make it a lot easier to do experimentation than has been possible in the past, and to do it in a way where, basically there's huge ROI to the business. The value proposition here is, for every buck you spend with me, you can make an incremental 20 doing whatever you're doing online. I spend a buck and get 20 in return. What's not to like about that? If you can't sell that, you can't sell frozen daiquiris in hell. I mean, let's go.
Actually, you just said another Jayism that I forgot. What's not to like about that?
There you go.
Now, I know I don't have you for a ton of time because you're busy building this giant new category and building this incredible company. Is there anything you want to touch on before we kick out of this one, Dr. Larson?
I don't think so. I'm very, very fired up about this business, and I'm really fortunate. This was a great draw for me. The reason that I ended up being at Optimizely, the last gig was winding down, and I called our mutual friend Lars Dalgaard. And I said to Lars, I said, hey, I'm going to be looking for something else to do. Have you got anything for me? And he said, yeah, I do. We need to talk. I said, okay, great. You around next week? And he goes, yeah, but not next week. We need to talk now. And I said, really? Like this afternoon? He goes, no, like now. I want you to get in your car and I want you to drive to my office in Menlo Park at Andreessen Horowitz. I've got a really special situation for you. I need to talk to you right now. Just get in your car and come over here immediately.
How great is it? Does anybody have more urgency than Lars?
So anyway, you know the guy, so you know that I'm telling the truth. So I get in my car and I drive over to Andreessen's offices, and I meet Lars, and he's on fire about this company. And the closer that I looked at the business, the more I liked it. Look, no company is perfect, and every company that you join, there's some things that you got to go and fix. The question is, can you not only address the things that need to be fixed, but can you really scale the business? Can you grow the business? Can you build a valuable enterprise? Does the dog hunt? Is there a compelling value proposition and a compelling product? And here we had to check in all of those boxes. The challenge for us was that the origins of the company were more in the SMB part of the market. And the future for our business and what I've been driving in the time that I've been here was we've been going hard to the enterprise. And, the good news, though, about what I inherited when I arrived is there was already a tremendous amount of enterprise business that had been done. And so there was ample evidence that we had the best product in the market, that the product actually work the best at the high end. And that's not only where we were the most differentiated, but where our price points were the best. And so it was a matter of taking great successes that we'd had with people, like IBM and Best Buy and State Farm and big companies like that, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the BBC, and taking that success which existed before I arrived and amplifying that. And that's what we've been working very hard to do in the time that I've been here. It's going great. I have a fantastic team of people. We're about 400 strong now, and the company did last year. We're bumping up against $100 million in ARR. And so it is not yet a big company, but we're on our way to being a big company on the strength of a value proposition that I think is just absolutely second to none. And the cool thing is we can actually deliver on this story. The story is true, and it just is it's so wonderful to be in a situation where you have what everybody in software wants, but most people don't have. What they want is, hey, buy my product and your company runs better and you get more money. That's what everybody is trying to concoct a story to, they want to tell the world that's their situation. Most people are not in that situation. It just is, it's with most software products, that's just not true. Here it is true. And we have all kinds of examples where people are doing amazing things online, optimizing what they're doing online. Conversion rates are greater, and it's pretty easy to calculate what the financial impact is on a company. So all of that is fantastic. And we've even got guys, there's a fellow at Harvard Business School who has written an article about experimentation. It was in the Harvard Business Review. He's on the faculty. Stefan Tomke is an amazing guy, and in academic circles, I think is the number one thinker on experimentation and innovation in business. And he's written a fantastic article on experimentation that appeared, 5 or 6 months ago. But basically his story is our story. It's if you want to do anything online and you want to do it well, and if you're looking to achieve a competitive advantage with anything that you're doing online, what do you need to get good at? You need to get good at experimentation. And this is an amazing piece, and it's not only his story, it's our story about the business impact, the business value that we're delivering, and why we think that there's a big business here that we can create, and one that it gets big on the strength of a value proposition to our customers that is unsurpassed.
Jay, I just love your passion. I mean, it oozes out of you, and I'm apt to say the E in CEO stands for evangelist. You are always an incredible evangelist. I always remember this coming out of you, the 2 times we worked together. And you said it a little bit earlier. I hear it even more today, like the spring in your voice. I mean, you really want to go prove this in the world and build this company out. And I couldn't be more happy for your success, Jay.
Well, I appreciate having an opportunity to be on your show, and as I think back about some of the special times in my career, I've been fortunate because I've had a chance to work with some amazing people, and you're at the top of the list. No disrespect to Muhammad Ali, but you're the greatest.
Well, I love you for saying that. And I also, if you'd be open to it, you guys are such a hot company. If, you tell me what the right time frame would be, but I think having a peek inside of a red hot company like Optimizely on a periodic basis as you continue to build this thing out. Anyway, all I'm saying is I think it'd be cool if you were to come back you tell me whenever the right appropriate time is to kind of unpack where you are, down the road a little bit, because as we used to say, you have a real tiger by the tail here, and you're executing on all cylinders.
Well, we'd love to have a chance to revisit Optimizely, and this is a wonderful company, a wonderful situation, and I've had the good fortune of working for some really good companies. previously in my career. I really believe that this could be the best of them all. And, I'm determined to go out and make that the case, not only for the terrific people that we have in the company, but for our customers who have been wonderfully supportive and, made me feel that I was incredibly fortunate to land where I am today.
Well, I love it. Please say hi to Fenton for me. Of course, say hi to Lars for me. And not to be overly corny, but I love you, man.
Me too. Thanks, Christopher. Appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to talking again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother.
Okay. Thank you.
Whew. Well, if you know somebody who would love this dialogue with Jay, why not share it with them right now, just on your smartphone or your tablet or however you're experiencing Legends and Losers. You can just go press the share button and send it directly to them. And I want you to know your shares on social media make a giant difference to the growth of Legends and Losers. So if you enjoy the show, I would ask you to share the show. And the same thing's true of your reviews. So if you've got 2 seconds, go to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. It makes a big difference for the growth of the show and for you just expressing that you appreciate what we're doing and we should keep doing it. And if you want to get into touch with us, we love that. On Twitter, you can find me at Lochhead, Lochhead. And if you want to email us, if you got any thoughts, comments, or questions, we're thinking about doing some question and answer shows, so we'll see what kind of a response we get. But if you would like me to answer a question of yours on Legends and Losers, email blackhole@legendsandlosers.com. All right. We would like to thank Optimizely, Jay Larson's company. Check out optimizely.com. My new book with the legendary Heather Clancy. Thank you so much for making us #1 on the day one we launched on Amazon.com. Check out nichebook.com to pick up your copy or several thousand copies today. The official coffee sponsor of Legends and Losers is Verve Coffee, the leader in West Coast craft coffee. Put some Verve in your cup. Check them out in Santa Cruz, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Tokyo, and always at vervecoffee.com. The amazing people at onelifefullylived.org. This is the nonprofit helping you dream, plan, and live your best life and build a foundation of financial security. Check out onelifefullylived.org. My new podcast with the amazing Nick Cullen, 6 Minutes of Legendary. You have made this podcast a top 50 Apple podcast right out of the chute. Thank you so much. Namaste. Check out 6 Minutes of Legendary, a new audio experience on Apple Podcasts. And speaking of Nick Cullen, if you want to growth hack your way to success, check out secondflightconsultancy.com. Nick and his team are the official growth hackers of Legends and Losers. Check out Bottleneck Virtual Assistants. Is it time for you to get an assistant? Why not leverage the power of a virtual assistant? Check out bottleneck.online today. And the amazing people doing incredible work at kiva.org. These are microloans that make a difference to small entrepreneurs all around the world. So check out kiva.org if you want to get into microloans that will make a difference. All right, this oddcast is the sole property of the Legends and Losers Oddcast Network, and we would love you just a little bit extra if you shared the shit out of it. We must remind you that all rights do remain disturbed, and warn you that this oddcast is clearly produced in a studio that does contain nuts. Teach entrepreneurship. Don't be lame. Get out of the passing lane. The Ramones said, "There's no stopping the cretins from hopping." Remember, if you haven't changed your mind lately, how do you know you have one? Thank you so much, Dandy Candy. I love you, Mom and Dad. And hey, Colin, this oddcast really ties the room together, doesn't it? Today, our deepest apologies to Larry Nasser. Sorry, Dr. Larry. We just ran out of time for you. That's it, my legendary friends. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you investing part of your life with us, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon on Legends and Losers.